All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a really powerful and, let's be honest, a highly unconventional strategy for influence. Now, I want to be clear, this is not about politics. This is about a playbook, a set of rules for a game where the normal rules just don't seem to apply. We're looking at this as a fascinating case study in how power works today.
Our source material really nails it with this quote. It's an instruction manual for dominating a world that is just screaming for our attention 24/7. And it makes you ask a pretty wild question. What if all the conventional wisdom we're taught, be reasonable, be predictable, try to be liked? What if that's actually holding you back when the stakes are high?
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the core philosophy of this unconventional playbook. Then we'll see how it weaponizes personality itself. After that, we'll cover the psychological armor you need to build, how it approaches deal-making, and finally, what the ultimate lesson is in all of this.
Okay, first chapter, the unconventional playbook. The key thing to get here is that this isn't some dusty old rulebook. It's a living, breathing blueprint for getting what you want, for surviving what would be a career-ending failure for most, and for actually using outrage as a strategic asset.
This brings us to a really fascinating part, weaponizing your personality. The big idea here is that your persona, how you come across to the world, isn't just for show. It is the strategy. It's a tool designed to completely sidestep the normal rules of engagement.
So how does that work? Well, it breaks down into three core principles. First, you've got the anchor of extremism, which is all about setting the stage for any negotiation. Second is using what looks like impulsivity as a strategic weapon of unpredictability. And third is building your entire brand through pure defiance. Let's dig into that first one.
So, what on earth is the anchor of extremism? It's a classic negotiation tactic, really. You start by making a demand that sounds completely, utterly absurd. By doing that, you're dropping a psychological anchor that immediately shifts the entire conversation. Suddenly, any move you make back from that crazy starting point seems like a massive, super reasonable concession, even if where you end up is still way more than you ever could have gotten otherwise.
And here's the big takeaway for you. Your own idea of what's reasonable might just be the biggest thing holding you back. This playbook teaches that if you ask for the moon, you might not get it, but you'll probably end up with a much bigger piece of the sky than you ever thought you could.
Now this next idea, it basically flips conventional wisdom completely on its head. We're all taught that being predictable is good, right? It shows you're reliable, you're disciplined. Well, in this playbook, being predictable makes you a target. Impulsivity, or at least seeming impulsive, becomes your greatest weapon. It keeps your opponents constantly guessing, totally off balance, unable to plan a good countermove.
So the lesson here is pretty simple, but it's powerful. Being calculatedly unpredictable is a huge advantage. If people can't get a read on you, they can't play you. It forces them to react to your moves, which means you're the one in control.
All right, the third principle, branding through defiance. So instead of running away from controversy, this strategy runs right towards it. It's all about refusing to blend in. It actually draws its energy from conflict. It's designed to polarize people, and in doing so, it creates this incredibly loyal base that sees anyone who opposes you as their common enemy.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? In today's noisy world, being ignored is way worse than being criticized. The whole idea here is that real disruption, even if it makes people angry, guarantees you get seen and heard. It carves out a space that is 100% yours. But, okay, when you're that defiant, you're going to face some serious backlash. So how do you survive it? That brings us to the playbook's defensive system, the armor of resilience. This is all about the psychological tools you need to just withstand constant public attacks.
Two main concepts make up this armor. The first is something our source calls the narcissistic shield, and the second is a relentless zero-sum mindset.
Okay, so what is this narcissistic shield? Think of it as a psychological defense mechanism. It's the ability to instantly reframe any loss as some kind of secret victory, and to dismiss any and all criticism as just being fake. From a purely strategic point of view, it's a crazy powerful tool for keeping your momentum going and projecting this aura of just unshakable confidence.
And the lesson here is pretty brutal. When you're facing a setback, the story you tell about that setback is everything. Sure, you can reflect on it privately, but this playbook argues that in public, you have to control that narrative ruthlessly. You can't let the perception of failure define you.
The second piece of this armor is the zero-sum mindset. This is a worldview where there's no gray area.
Every single situation is a simple contest. There's a winner and there's a loser. That's it. This perspective fuels this incredibly intense, uncompromising drive to win every single time, which turns every negotiation into an all-out battle. And that brings us to the actual tactics.
So now that we get the mindset, let's look at how it's actually applied. This is where we get into the art of the deal. This is the part of the playbook that's purely transactional, incredibly aggressive, and laser-focused on just one thing: results.
Let's break down the three big principles here. First, maximize leverage. In business, that translates to find the other person's biggest weakness and use it to force the deal you want. But, and this is a big but, the cautionary note is that this burns bridges. It's all about short-term wins, not long-term partnerships. Second, fight back hard. This means you never, ever let someone get away with a slight. You retaliate every time to build a reputation as someone who can't be pushed around. The downside? You create a lot of resentment. And finally, have fun. This means staying emotionally detached, actually enjoying the fight. The danger here is that you can come across as totally callous, which makes people not want to work with you at all.
So we've looked at the offense, the defense, the tactics. What does this all add up to? Well, we've arrived at the ultimate lesson. And it really boils down to one fundamental question about power. Who actually gets to set the rules of the game?
And this quote from our source gives us the playbook's answer. It suggests that the rules aren't fixed. They're being defined right now in real time by the person who is most willing to break them, the person who is the most unpredictable, the most uncompromising, and who can just command all the attention in the room. It's a really powerful and maybe a little unsettling idea.
And that's what I want to leave you with. In today's world, who really sets the rules? Is it the institutions and the traditions we've always looked to? Or is it the individuals who are just bold enough and disruptive enough to write their own? Something to think about.